All right. Well, we are live once again with the Entrepreneur Workshop. Today, we've got two guests, Jon and Kirk, who have just launched a new product and something they call U.L.A. Universe. We're going to talk through the challenges and the opportunities that they have seen along the way, and how they balance, normal life, real life, with starting a business. It's always filled with opportunities and challenges, and looking forward to learning from them. Gentlemen, welcome to the Entrepreneur Workshop.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting. You guys just launched this product, the SISU Stamina product, and I want to touch on that because not everybody launches products nowadays, and talks through their journey. A lot of people are interested in launching courses and digital products. You have, though, an actual physical supplement that you've launched, which is it's not something that everybody's talking about on LinkedIn. So love to hear more about that. But first, maybe introduce yourselves and how you got started with this U.L.A. Universe thing.
Well, I can jump in if that's not big trouble. So I'm Kirk Van Everen. I started working with Jon several years ago, back in 2016. My background is in the military. I was an Army officer for 12 years. Just recently got out of the Army. I was medically retired. But over the past couple of years, Jon and I started collaborating on what started off as an initial idea and has now grown into a full company that we just launched. So my background in artillery, and in process management and in strategic planning has kind of fed into how we've built this, our vision, and has gone from an idea and truly just whiteboarding now to a physical storefront, a full website, a podcast, a book. A tremendous amount of resources. So not to steal the thunder, but that's my role in this as a co-founder. And then Jon, take from there.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Jon Mayo, and in the pursuit of purpose and significance, we were brainstorming, well, how can we continue to serve? I was about a year out of the military. Kirk was looking at some of these medical things going on and saying, hey, you may not be able to stick to the original plan of doing 20 years. And that beautiful question really fueled the beginning of this initiative, right? And something that is fairly common is if you try to do everything at once, then you're trying to boil the ocean, right? So having a big vision, that part was easy. Dialing it down to where do we start and how do we actually apply it with action has been the work. And as Kirk mentioned, we do have now the physical product that was 3 years in the making because of product development, testing, finding the right partners for quality control. All of that is why people are probably just doing e-courses, right? When you're making a consumable physical product, you're going to pay a different type of tax, metaphorically, right? To keep your standards where you want them and to build a good partnership with those third parties. In addition to the book, the podcast, all that good stuff, we also just began and are launching our community element as well through our allies and affiliations programs. So it's definitely a dynamic and exciting time, and things are only picking up as we continue forward. So,
yeah, you've got a pretty grand vision. When you talk about U.L.A. Universe,
yes,
you mean it, because you've got the podcast, like you talk about, you've got the book, you now have the physical product that you're selling through your website, and then the allies component. Was it originally this big, or how did you go from one idea to expansion, or how'd that process work out for you?
We had a hard time satiating our desire to help people. The amount of times we circled back on what our mission statement was, our target audience, the scope of even our ambition in this capacity is countless, and it's been this cyclical process of reevaluation. But it did start off with us just identifying a problem that was inadequately being addressed, or not being addressed, right? And we wanted to, and it's really a problem that we personally felt we experienced. And once we kind of zeroed in on exactly how we wanted to solve that problem, we realized that there was a greater audience of people that would be interested in not necessarily just a singular product, but a psychographic we would target at that point. And then from there, once you start talking about an ideology, you start talking community, you start talking about a whole different toolbox of ways you could try and address those problems, but also help those people. We realized we couldn't just singularly produce one product. It'd be easy to just open up an Etsy. Nothing against Etsy, but it's just there's plug and play solutions for this. But we realized that we would not be accomplishing our mission statement without creating the infrastructure to support a much larger vision. And so that's how we expanded off of from one product into now a whole suite of solutions.
And to weigh in on that a little bit, right? Getting down to the brass tacks. So SISU Stamina, this is the SISU Stamina Axe and Arrow, is part of a large line called SISU Perform, right? And what SISU Stamina specifically is, it's a performance enhancing energy supplement that's natural, healthy, and effective. And typically you don't get those three things in a row, right? Well, why the heck did we go and design that and invest our sanity for 3 years to build it? Well, as Kirk had referenced, when we're both active duty, we served together. We didn't sleep, right? You're on multi-day operations. It's the exact product essentially that we wish we had, where I would do a couple grams, like I would do 1 to 1.5 grams of caffeine a day to stay sharp and a bunch of nicotine. I was like, this isn't good for my long-term health. And Kirk was doing the same, just minus the nicotine, and neither of us were happy about it, but hey, we had a mission to do. And it's like, well, what if we could create something that we'd feel good about consuming in those environments? And that's where SISU Stamina came in. We're immensely excited about it and providing it to those who have already began using it and creating pretty significant impacts, a little bit healthier and a little bit more durable. So that's exciting. And then when it comes to like the vision of the organization, right? I was in an amusing conversation the other day where the person they had a lot to say and not a lot to listen. So I got pegged as a pie in the sky dreamer. Well, that's fine. And I appreciate the motivation. But at the end of the day, we want to continue to serve and love people so that we may better lead good lives, right? And that is largely subjective to the individual. So what we've worked to create is an invitation that allows people to come in. Yes, they can functionally grab a hold of SISU Stamina and have a better solution than the energy drinks at the store and these other options. Or they can take a long, hard look in the mirror by grabbing Be Relentless, If the Obstacle is the Way, We Are Waymakers, which is our book. They can join our community and get involved as of this week, whether they are lead an organization or an individual. And frankly, this is just starting to touch the tip of the iceberg. But these things are functionally applied, actionable, and available now. And that's kind of fun.
Where does the book fit into this? And when did the book get created? Because you're working on the product. And you have a book and a podcast. What's the order of operations here?
Yeah. So I'll tackle that one since I primarily wrote it. Kirk did some amazing sacrifices of love to help me make the Audible book. We co-did that, and we've helped each other. But to answer your question specifically, I started the process of writing that book about 5-6 years ago, and it's been an iterative approach since. That essentially, a lot of authors will say when you write a book, are you writing the book or is the book writing you? And this is one of those instances. How it fits into due to some of the life circumstances we've navigated as partners and some of the delays with third party that we've had to navigate as well, there's been little gaps where I've been able to experiment with other things. Well, one such experiment was finishing the book.
It's a casual side experiment. Just write a book in the meantime. I got some downtime with 4 kids. Write a book.
you sacrifice sleep and you get things done. And it was a sacrifice of sanity and rest and a few things. But where it fits into the U.L.A. is it has done an adequate job of distilling the ethos that we're walking towards. So if someone wants to understand, okay, what is a deep dive into what these guys are pursuing, the book will give you a complete psyche val of precisely what we're up to. So radical transparency there, right? And what's fun is it's not focused on my story so much as on as much as being an invitation to walk through a journey looking at your own story. And then there's just supplemental anecdotal things along the way that help influence the reader as they experience their own story. But that's where the book comes in. So it now represents a deep look at who we are, what we're up to, and what we're going to be doing. And it represents itself as an invitation for others to join us.
Yeah, as I was reading that book, what struck me is it's sort of process and habits type of book. These are principles to keep in mind and a process to think these things through, and habits that you might want to engage in to, like you're talking about, if be a way maker, right? How do you make a way to achieve the things that you want to achieve?
Yeah, boil it down, right? Learning to become very intentional, cultivating SISU. And SISU is essentially, SISU starts where grit ends. So it's like an extraordinary level of indomitable willpower, if you will, and being very disciplined and consistent. And as those three nodes are worked together, that over time creates progress. And that creates what Kirk and I call the waymaker, right? This idea that if we're looking at a frontier filled with obstacles, what if we could learn to reframe it and see a landscape of opportunities? And that has been one of the things that consistently we are high-fiving on when we're looking at challenges and struggles and the pressure of being ambitious and aggressive in what we're working to grow as we're working to serve our community. And at the end of the day, with the proper framing, we've continued to come back to being able to attack these different elements despite their breadth with precision that actually brings them to reality. So they're available, which is fun.
So there's no that. Go ahead. Sorry, Kirk.
As I say, the book really does expand on the I mentioned the psychographic that we're targeting here, but it does expand on the ideology in an attempt to connect with people that would see themselves in a position where they would like to apply principles of personal responsibility, continuous improvement, and also act as like an operating framework for them to move themselves from where they are right now to a position of improvement, whether it's their personal lives, their families, or their communities in that regard. The book was, God, hats off to Jon, a tremendous amount of effort in this department as well. But it is definitely a comprehensive toolkit, because it's not super verbose in the sense that it expands on a lot of these stories. It leads as a list of resources and exercises that someone reading it can apply in their own life in a generic capacity, if they accept that invitation. The whole book leads with an invitation. It's actually the first part of the book. And if they accept that invitation, then with proper application, deliberate, intentional application of these exercises that were built, these are the things they could expect with disciplined application over time. We truly believe that if somebody can see themselves in that individual that was described, which in this case was Jon, and his path that in his journey that he took, we felt that we could truly connect with. There's so many other people out there in this position that feel these things, that encounter the same obstacles, that maybe default to the same cycle of whether it's self-sabotage or just this negative injection of thinking. And they just continue to find themselves in this rut. And this is a way to just free that gridlock and allow themselves to forge a path where none exists. Hence the Waymaker. So I thought that was just a beautiful complement to the entire framework of what our company's striving to actually promote. And as it is an invitation, we welcome people to explore it in themselves and walk that path with us. So,
and it seems that, you are your invitation, walk that path with us. It seems like it is a case of kind of eating your own dog food.
Mhm.
You guys have a particular way of working together
Mhm.
towards these goals intentionally. I love that word that you brought out. That it seems you have a good cadence. A lot of people who enter business partnerships don't get that cadence together, and it feels disjointed. The results are a little half baked. You you have blended the adage of if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You seem to have blended it together to be, hey, you want to go fast and far. That's what you guys seem to be
Ooh,
doing. What are the elements that make your business partnership successful?
Do you mind if I jump on that one first, buddy?
go for it, John.
So the business partnership piece first, right? And then I'd love just to swiftly touch on the quote, the African proverb you just shared with the going fast, go alone, going far, go together. But business application first, right? How do Kirk and I do it? Extraordinary levels of pain and intimacy that have been that have been cultivated over the years. We had the fortune of starting our relationship in austere, high stress environments. So little sleep, tending to one another's well-being consistently, working towards a mission, little food, like all those things help to really galvanize us learning who we were and how we respond when we're at our worst. Okay, you haven't slept for 3 days and you haven't eaten for 2, whatever, right? Oh, and like this just got blown up. Who cares? What are we going to do about it, right? That was Kirk's and I's crucible for the first couple years of our relationship. And what we chose to do, which I still don't think is the common response, but it's the response we chose, is we chose to press in to pursuing the well-being of one another and the health of our relationship in much the same way that you might a marriage. And that it's like, okay, if we're going to work well together, how do we best support one another to our shared objectives? And how do we ensure that the problems we're facing, unless it is me, right, or it is him, that we're working in unity at the problem, not at each other's throats? And years of, I would say, just hyper focus on those questions has cultivated this. But getting the catalyst of the first 2 years of that environment definitely helped.
Yeah, I think what you said was really hitting the crux of it. We made sure that we were attacking the problem as a team as opposed to attacking each other. So there was a deliberate, intentional walkthrough of identifying what is the actual problem, right? And sometimes it's just communication style. Sometimes it's, truly, like, how best does John receive information? You want to be a very, very good partner. Again, we are just starting, but I can tell you that when it comes to proofs in the, like, when it comes to proof in the, proofing in the pudding, John and I have proved that point. How does it at like 0 hours of sleep, 50 hours into, and this is an actual reference point, how does John best receive information when I'm doing a battlefield handoff to him, or from him to me, right? And you cannot wing that each time, or else you're going to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. If you want to be effective as business partners in this capacity, it is a continuous sharpening of that blade. You're not just, oh yeah, okay, so he's upset. Okay, well, why is he upset? Okay, did I not project my information, the essence of this point I'm trying to make, in a way that he was best receiving it, right? And John jokes about the marriage thing, but that is exactly what you would do in a marriage. You would reflect on, okay, well, am I part of the problem? Are they a problem? What is the issue? Okay, let's now pivot together and focus and attack the problem now. So that was, I just wanted to highlight that because that was so intentional for us.
Absolutely. And I think two very succinct things that help with that. Like if someone's like looking at being in a partnership, or they're struggling, or they're starting one, whatever the case may be, where there may be some gold to pull from this, some free chicken, if you will, is we started with an idea. And one of the first things we did was make a business agreement, because we wanted, one, it takes a level of maturity just to say like, okay, things could go bad someday. We don't have any anticipation of that. But let's write things out right now so that we don't even ever have to worry about that again. And that was frankly easier for us, given that up until that point, we'd been dealing with the currency of each other's lives. So now we're just talking about money and things that we create. So it's like, oh, whatever. Yeah, let's make this contract. So we did. And that freed us not to have to revisit those things. And I would highly encourage people to do that before even starting, if they have the capacity to, or very soon after. And if they don't have it, I'd encourage that. The other is, it's uncomfortable. Like the level of intimacy we're describing may freak some people out. Yeah. Well, every business partnership does not need to be like this. Our partnerships with some third parties are not intimate, right? But we make sure that they have legal backing. But for ours to work in the level of us creating this business, we're relentless in the pursuit of resolution. So if there is an issue, if I can sense he's off, vice versa, we will just call it out. There's been countless times both of us have said, all right, pause. You okay? What's going on here? And then it's like, yeah, I'm fine. And it's like, no, the F you're not. Right. And then it's not allowed to continue. So I think that cultivating that type of candor and setting the ground rules, even like, hey, we're going to give each other permission to ask if we're okay. Right. Those types of things have helped us as well. And the last point to your quote, right, Jason, where you mentioned the proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we're working to do both. Well, the other thing that's really cool is the podcast, Be Relentless, right, is alive right now because of that same mentality. And if we open ourselves up to evaluating opportunity instead of shutting the door due to preconceived notions, we may find that we're able to do more. Point in case, the podcast would be sitting there, but inactive, except that there's a gentleman who believes in what we're doing and wanted to join. And that gentleman's name is Brandon, and he's the podcast producer. And because of his desire and the conversations we had, the podcast is now regularly, moving forward, which is a great boon for us. It's highly enjoyable, and he's ensuring that it's operating in the same way. We're just right now welcoming our first author for our blog. He's going to own and run that entire category for similar reasons. And we're going to start something, the third element of the community aspect of our universe, which is called the Forge. Well, there's another gentleman who's signing on for that. We could never do those things if we didn't make it an opportunity for people to talk to us about that and then engage in those conversations meaningfully. And when you're already setting up systems to provide the legal protections and backings, and you're used to being radically candid in conversation and setting expectations, it's freed us to be able to move a lot faster because we can also welcome more people in, even when we're just starting.
And even expanding beyond that, John, I mean, one thing, there's the allies element of our business, and then there's the affiliation aspect of this business, which that terminology should be fairly, well understood in this particular environment. But, just to add on to that, like we would be shouting into an empty room everything that we believe, and it could be the most profound, impactful statements. But if you don't have an audience to receive it, it is just an empty room at just that. So pulling those people in, taking the intentional actions to connect with those individuals, establishing buy-in from them, and then having like a team expand from that point out is essential to going far versus going fast. So we are trying to do both, though. So that is that's the tease right there.
Well, it seems that you guys have an advantage over many people who get into business partnerships because you learned how to work together before you started the business. Whereas many people have this idea for a business, they start the business and then they learn how to work together. And there are some elements that stand out for me that I think is part of your advantage. Number one is this concept of discipline. You know how to be disciplined to achieve a goal, and you know how that discipline works with one another. You've developed similar habits, similar mindsets, and along with that, you're very mission minded. You understand what it's like to be out on a mission and achieve a goal together under stress. And stress is a great revealer of all of our negative qualities. When we are stuck in the pressure cooker together, we have a tendency sometimes maybe to lash out at one another or snap or deal with things poorly. You understood how each other works under stress, along with discipline, along with a mission mindset. And I think many people don't have that leg up when they're just starting out on a business.
Absolutely. I mean, I really, I think that is probably the key to our success is the established relationship first, because there's just so much you're going to be in so many stressful positions where if you don't have effective communication strategies established, you will tear each other apart. And it'll scuttle the opportunities that could have been for a business that had all the potential to go far. But you just didn't put the groundwork in to make sure that you're rowing in sync with each other. John has got to the point where he can, like, it's almost like he put his ear to the ground, or he can just smell like tension, and he's just like, hey, my Kirk dar, which is actually a coined phrase for him, has been going off. What's going on? And he has a remarkable track record for being spot on, even if I don't even realize it, because at that point he sees something is off, and I don't even realize that there has been something tugging at me that is, from a business perspective, is eroding my effectiveness as a partner, my mentality, motivation, any number of different things. It can chip away at those things. So being in tune with those things, like, not every day is going to be a slam dunk for anybody on this path whatsoever. You will have off days and off days and off days. And if you are aware of that as a partner, you can then shift back and forth. It's like, hey, I got 20% to give. I got the other 80. Hopefully it's not that big of a lift, but the point is like, we're still getting to 100. And then because it's 50-50, but on a bad day where it's like, hey, I got something going with family. Okay, now it's 90-10. Right. But without effectively communicating that from one to another, you're going to have like a collective off day at that point, because you just didn't have the comfort of expressing that discomfort, or that, I don't know. Sometimes we will dig into things even if we both aren't aware of what's going on, and we'll have these aha moments, and then we're high-fiving, and now we're sprinting in the same direction together.
And in fairness, because I can feel some people rolling their eyes right now. I'm like, wow, these guys sound like a married couple. A lot of these conversations would make everyone who's not Kirk or myself very uncomfortable to be in the room, because of the amount of, you could call it passion, or you could call it aggression, that we may exhibit as we're working through those things.
There's jealousy from my wife's end, for sure. So, I know your wife as well, John.
Yeah. Well, and aside from that, like, some of our interactions are very kinetic, right? But they're always constructive. And I think that's the thing that really helps to keep us in line. And it's like, okay, if it's starting not to become constructive, we've not had to do this in years. But if a conversation's beginning to become unconstructive, we freeze it in whatever way and however dramatically as possible. But it's like, hey, we're starting to rip each other's throats out. We're no longer being constructive. Break. And we'll just hang up and come back when
it's not like going to bed like in separate bedrooms kind of a thing, just to play out the marriage analogy. It's not like that. It is us understanding that the tools we're currently applying are not effective. So then we have to figure out what tools to better apply. So while we were like rowing through building the shipping component of our company, we were up till 4 a.m, I think, John. Like, this is just a surge row session. We were trying to tackle a very deliberate problem, and we got buy-in from our families. We did protect this time frame. It sounds crazy, but before we established that buy-in, and then it's like we just surged. It was 2-3 in the morning, and we were trying to resolve a particular friction point, and it was like we were trying to talk through it, and it wasn't working. And then it was like, to the whiteboards, like you see behind John, like, we use whiteboards religiously. Whiteboarding the concept, because maybe a take on this is what breaks through to the other side to establish clarity of understanding. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's sunk in. And we just changed the angles of attack, not like a aggressive, like never like a hurtful way, but changed the angles of attack, and then found the breakthrough point. And then we were in full unison, back on the same page. But we were fighting the problem, not each other. And that's super important. So, yeah.
Well, you touch on this idea of additional stakeholders, because it's not just you guys in this game. You have families as well, which that's a different dynamic.
Yes.
And it's a struggle that a lot of people don't do a good job muddling through, because it can be quite a challenge, I know. So how do you keep those other stakeholders in sync when you two seem to be so well in sync?
Do you want to take this, John?
Sure, I'll start us off. Goodness gracious, I am blessed to have 4 sons, and my bride, who's my heart, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for both of those elements of my life. And today I was having a conversation with my bride. Her name's Lindsay. and talking about the season we're in of rowing and such. And she, rowing's what we call work, right? It's just a fun inside jest. But, and we're just discussing kind of what we're seeing over the coming months and some of the commitment, things like that. And given that, she simply said, okay, I'd like you to be done by 1800, right? You're up at 3, you're working. That's already 15 hours of you being dedicated. You're probably almost dead at that point anyways. Be done at 1800 and be with us. And I agree. All right, 1800 is my 6 p.m. is my cutoff time, right? And that is one like micro example that happened today that goes into that. I'd say the same application of what Kirk and I have been discussing is what I do with my wife. We talk fairly consistently on, are your needs being met, or the family's needs being met, or our priorities in line? And we have coined it as a living experiment. And what that's given us the freedom to do is, instead of it feeling like an attack of you don't support me now or whatever, right? It's, hey, this seems out of balance. It's like, oh, let's adjust the formula. Let's adjust the what we're doing and work to unity again. And that, and also remembering like, hey, the business is here to the reason we're pursuing purpose and a business is because we want to be, in this instance, better men for our families. So it'd be kind of foolish if we sacrificed our families for the business, right? So just remembering our priorities as well. And then ensuring through an iterative approach that we are consistently realigning ourselves with our priorities is how I've been tackling it.
I think the approach that you've mentioned, John, the so what from that is that you've received buy-in and support through that communication, because they really, like, we would ground this to a halt and pull the plug before we'd ever let it like really harm our families in any capacity. There's going to be some sacrifices. There's no way around it. You know, I would love to just spend all day in a vacation. Well, I wouldn't personally, but I understand that a lot of people would love to be able to spend all day and be able to tend 100% into that one priority of just family all day long. But the other things would suffer. So if you're going to take out of that cup, right, if the cup's only, so full and 50% of it is focused on work and so on and so forth, you have to figure out how you partition those things out, and communicating those priorities so that they're understood, gets that buy-in from the family. Then they're tracking what you're doing. You're respecting their needs, their priorities. They feel listened to, right? And then you are free to then focus fully on the task at hand without being mentally divided that you're simultaneously abandoning your other priorities. John, you have children. I have one on the way. There are definitely times where John has baby in hand. We've been rowing and he's got your nephew, right?
My niece, yeah.
Your niece swaddled, and we're working simultaneously. So sometimes, there's a little bit of a juggling act, but your family, for us, we make sure that they feel heard.
Very shortly, one of the concepts the three of us have talked about offline that I think is worth breathing life into here publicly is our primary stakeholders, the people who are investing more than anyone else, are our families. We can never get time back. You can earn money back. My children's childhoods, my wife's golden years as we're younger, right? They're all being invested in these pursuits. I am aggressively against the mentality that, just sacrifice your marriage, sacrifice your family for the dream. I think it's incredibly immature and I don't like it. I think that we can rise higher and become more because of those responsibilities by leaning into them. And that's where the opportunity lies. And I think it's fairly childish to throw those things away in name of some other pursuit. And obviously that's my opinion. And I like to stir the pot on that one, but they're investing their lives. I should be a good steward of that. Right.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to my mind is this idea of work-life balance, and it's bandied around as though, that you can hold them somehow in balance, like either be in, be out, like I'm at work and then I have my life outside of work and all these things. And it's a little bit of a misnomer. I think one of the better analogies that I heard is it's more like life is more like pizza. you have a certain number of toppings that you want on your pizza, and you have to have them all in proportion to one another. And when one is out of balance, it's not the pizza that I wanted. And so, like you're talking about, you have sometimes this moment when you're working and also attending to a family. It just as though you'd eat a slice of pizza. You got some cheese, you got some sauce, you got some, you know, for me, it's pepperoni, sausage, mushroom, onion, but I'll happily have supreme too. And other people, hey, I don't want all those things on my pizza. I just want these things. And that moves into this idea that there's two really great places. I heard somebody just said this very recently. Two great places for personal development. One is marriage, and the other one is entrepreneurship. Because you are faced with having to juggle things that other people don't have to juggle. You're faced with a lot of responsibility, a lot of decision making. In your case, you're faced with another business partner who you have to look at and check in on, and they're also checking in on you, and you have to watch yourself and constantly be in a state of refining yourself so you show up well for your business partner, which then allows you to show up well for your business, and at the same time, like in your pizza, showing up well for your family.
Yes. Yeah, that hits the nail on the head, frankly. The whiteboard behind me, when it's not being used for idea generation, my little boys are drawing on it, right? And, a point of pride, part of this journey, right, was to continue serving, but also to evolve as an individual. And 4 years ago, my kids would want to pretend to drink a beer with me. And now they are running their own podcasts, writing their own books, talking about the businesses they're going to build. They're working out all the time. And it's like, okay, this is a better reflection. I'm more content with this, So
I can validate everything John just said, because it sounds crazy to say, oh yeah, now my children are talking about being the next entrepreneur. I've literally seen their business plans. I've watched them like pitch me. They absolutely. It is there's an additional point of reflection that they do mirror the examples within their lives. So this vision and mission that we've built is an incredible reflection of a lot of interpersonal reflection and Kaizen, if you will, continuous improvement that we inject into our own lives. And the outputs of this, if anything, for sure has been positive influences within the household. I've been over to your house many, many times, John, and they are just vivacious. They just want to create. They have visions of future, and it's like, I know that's coming from an aura that is given off from the mission and vision and lifestyle choices that we make every single day. So in a microcosm, that's wonderful, and would love to be able to expand that beyond that to our community and globally. That's the idea.
Have you experienced along your journey any roadblocks where you thought, boy, this might be the end? I don't think we're going to get through this one.
I think there's a couple that come to mind. There were some really hard roadblocks when we were dealing with third-party people, because you don't control them. You just have like an idea, and they pitch you on what they can bring to the table, and you're nodding your head, and everybody's like, okay, this sounds good. And then you get down the road and you realize that they're not able to deliver on that. It threatens I guess you could say the visual footprint of what our current product is more times than I could count. And that caused us to go back and revisit the design, the intent. We had questions about what things we wanted to compromise on, what things we're going to hold our ground on. But for me, I don't think it was ever a matter of like, all of this is going to come crashing down. Yeah. It was more so this might not end up in the direction we think it will. But if it ends up like this vision or this particular pursuit hits a wall, okay, then we just pivot, take all the lessons learned, all the tools that we've accumulated over the last few years, and then surge that in far more efficiently, I would say.
In a better direction.
In a new direction. It is always forward. It's just you're taking detours then. You're going a different direction then.
Yeah, to that exact point, a product line, a specific solution or that we're working to create, any of that could fail at any time. That's fine. As far as stopping us from pursuing this purpose and building the community, yeah, we could die, but that's it. outside of that, we will find or create a way and continue forward.
Yeah.
So as far as throwing in the towel holistically, I can't say that's happened. Questioning sanity, battling emotional fits, the imposter syndrome, all of those things. Absolutely. This morning we were working through some stuff like that, doing housekeeping. But at the end of the day, it always comes back to, well, this path may not be the one we thought it was, but we can always adjust our trajectory and continue forward with the lessons learned. And we're better than when we started because of those lessons. So holistically, I don't think there's an ounce of quit in us, short of like getting killed. Specifically to the different pursuits,
But we know your
perhaps.
children, but we do know your children would carry on the legacy from everything I've heard. So
they would.
Even it's multi-generational at this point. I don't think actually, I think you can cross that off the list of things that could stop Jon. It's like, no, I may be stopped because if I die, my children will take over. So yes.
It is interesting though. I mean, the children do watch us, and I was having dinner with a friend yesterday, and we were just talking about how his boys have begun hanging their sunglasses on the hook. He's got some hooks by his door, and he had always hung he hangs his sunglasses on that hook, and his boys have started hanging just out of the blue. Nobody made mention of it. Just out of the blue, they started hanging their sunglasses there, and it seems to me like I followed in the path of entrepreneurship because I never realized I never thought it was not possible. I was like, I'm just going to start my thing. I'm going to do my own thing because I learned from my dad who started a business, and I was around business. I went to the office with my mom, and I sat there behind her desk on the floor as she did the accounting work. I was always part of just, hey, every day we go to the office and we do work. And so when it came time to launching a business, like, of course. And I've talked to so many people who it doesn't cross their mind that they could just start a business. Like, hey, you could do it. It's entrepreneurship. Everybody could do this. It's not rocket science, but you do need to acquire some certain skills, and your kids are watching those skills unfold in front of them. And they're just acquiring them. They don't even have a choice in the matter. They are little sponges, it seems, right?
Yes, and I'm very grateful that these are the traits they're getting instead of alcoholism. So it's a much better trade-off. But they do. I make that joke because they not only our children, but everyone around us does absorb and is influenced by the choices we make, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. So I'm certain my wife's a lot happier now too, and I know that our friendship, Kirk, is a lot better. And this path has led us to be an opportunity like this to get to build a relationship with you, Jason, and have fun in these contexts. So it's neat because my point to this is I think that we sometimes justify to ourselves that the decisions we make day in and day out or don't think about don't have a lot of influence. Well, they do. And the biggest deception is that we're hiding it from ourselves. But the inner dialogue and relationship with self that we have is heavily influenced by how well we keep our word with ourselves and how well we treat ourselves throughout and negotiate with our environments and with our loved ones and things like that. So it's funny because the reflection of what the kids do is really just a third order effect of a reflection of how we treat ourselves, right? Same with our marriages and other relationships. Each one's just an indicator. And that's where one of our focuses is if you work in concentric circles from the self out, and you're always starting and focusing on working on yourself and allowing things to flow out from there, you're able to hopefully show up a little bit better than you would otherwise.
Yeah, which is a unique perspective, I think, because so many people think of when working on yourself as though it's a self-centered, or many people look at it or work at it as though it's in a sense, sort of a self-centered, narcissistic type of thing. Well, it's all about me. I'm going to work on me. When in fact, if you attend to yourself, then you can attend to everybody else better.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's it's a key principle towards leadership as well. Because like even with your best intentions, you can burn yourself out And if you take yourself out of the fight, you're not useful to other people at that point.
Mhm.
So that intentional investment in yourself is just keeping your tools sharp. You're keeping the gears installed to be able to not only be a more effective person in how you treat yourself, but to others that depend on you, whether that's your family or people that are your employees. You have to you have to keep yourself as part of the equation. The leader goes down, like the leader's useless at that point. Case in
Mhm.
point, I mean, you just flame out, then now you're creating additional burdens. In fact, you're making it worse. You're projecting what was your responsibilities now onto other people that have to pick up the slack that you've now created.
Mhm.
So it is actually quite the opposite. I would say it's not selfish in the slightest. It is truly being considerate of others to make sure that you come to the fight as fresh as possible. And if that
Yeah.
means that you're investing time in introspective thought, time reading to just absorb information that can make you a better person, and just being radically candid with yourself and having those conversations with your friends, your business partners, to be a better person, husband, friend, brother, etc., sister, mother, so on and so forth, just makes you more effective across the board.
Mhm.
Um, so yes,
And,
you come to the
and
fight better armed.
a really fun analogy that kind of brings it home and punctuates it for us is eating, right? We all need to eat. We're all humans. Unless someone has a hack on that, I'd love to hear it. But we eat food, and young leaders in the military and a lot of leaders that I've experienced and worked with in the civilian sector wear a badge of honor in not eating, right? They may, oh, I'm so busy, so they don't eat, or they
Mm.
eat crap, or whatever the case may be. And they wear that as a badge of honor because they're sacrificing themselves. And it's this thing. And it's like, okay, well, the reason that's really only survives with young leaders in the military is because when you are out somewhere for weeks on end, you'll die. So that gets eroded really quickly.
Mm.
Uh, but here in this sector, right, that's much more unlikely because you can get something from the 7-Eleven, you can get something from there. So then your health just erodes over time. But there's this catalyst of, well, if I just take the 10 minutes to eat this meal well, like a good meal, I am going to be so much sharper and fortified and have better energy for the next 5 hours. And that's like the simplest thing. So whenever I talk to someone, they're like, oh, yeah, boss is too busy to eat. I was like, boss's priorities are wrong. I just learned a lot about boss. Right.
Mm.
And then I typically get asked, boss, hey, when's the last time you eat? And then I get to have a fun conversation with them because I like to stir the pot. But yeah, that's a fun analogy, right? Even something as simple as eating a meal to be sharper for the next couple hours
Mm.
can be a huge indicator of this type of concept.
Yeah, the hangry thing that people like to bandy around as though it's like, well, it's just kind of an excuse for showing up as a jackass because I didn't eat all day. It's like, well, why does everybody have to suffer because you didn't eat
Mm.
all day?
It's also, did you not eat just so you can tell me that you didn't eat? Let's be
Right.
honest
Yeah.
with ourselves. You just wanted the punchline of being able to say, oh God, I haven't slept in 7 days because I just care so much. It's like, okay, you just wanted to tell me that because you need it as part of your own validation, because you think that's synonymous with you being somebody who cares or who's the most invested. I don't, that currency works when you're very immature. I don't think it has value beyond that. So
And I
doesn't
think
work
it's
on me.
detrimental to your business.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not to say that you won't have long hours and that you won't have to juggle priorities. There's things that you're going to have to erode, but if they're like metabolic, like you got to take care of that stuff. It's like, okay, cool. You may have to sacrifice a weekend away trip, or you might have to, you may not be able to just binge watch your favorite show. That's fine, but that's a different kind of sacrifice. Like that's not metabolic. That's at the very bottom of the hierarchy. So top, sorry. There you go.
Yeah. I really do appreciate talking to you guys about these matters because you come at it from such a disciplined and well thought out approach that many people just have never developed. And I think it's really because you have a military background and knew each other prior to getting into business. And I think there's a lot of wisdom and encouragement I think that entrepreneurs could gather from you and the way that you guys operate because it's so rare actually that business partnerships work so well like yours does.
I will say though, just not to discourage people though. It's like, all right, well, I got to sign up for the military. I got to do a whole bunch of years. Got to find that one guy that I'm like going to be best friends with. Then clock a couple of years. Then I'll be in a position to start a company. Truly, it's just intentionality.
Yeah,
really, like just intentional, deliberate living. You can cultivate discipline. You can inject intentionality into your daily schedule. You can develop communication styles that eventually get to this point where it's that effective where you can move forward and sync, and you just pick up on the waves, the radio waves, right? Of what each partner is thinking and doing, right? But I would say that where we are right now, yes, I would agree that we are fortunate because it worked this way. But for people out there that are thinking about the mysticism behind any of this stuff, it's just a lot of intentional effort. Like all of the ideas, all of the things that we've got flushed at this point is hundreds of hours of conversation, thought, experimentation, things that we crossed off the board because they weren't viable anymore, and growth and evolution over time. I know Jason preaches to the choir here, but for anybody else that thinks that this is a barrier to entry, it's just clocking the time and effort and being intentional about it.
And I deeply appreciate the compliment. I would also encourage people in that I'm more disciplined now than when I served. I'm also in better shape now than when I served.
Yes, good point, John. Yeah, because this came after you left. I mean, that's it. He was an absolute animal in the Army. I will say that, but he was unhealthy. Like he's like, I just want to lift this 350-pound Atlas stone over my head until my spleen explodes. Right? Like, it's only like slightly exaggerated. It's not even that far off. John is so much more focused on longevity and health and functional utility when it comes to his fitness. So like when he says, like, it wasn't like John wasn't a stud beforehand. So but your evolution out of that was it happened after the fact. So it didn't require military beforehand, is my point.
Yeah, and absolutely. And my point for stating that is I just hate for someone to hear your compliment and make it an excuse for themselves not to take action towards something that creates value. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that stands between us and creating value and leading better lives is ourselves. And unfortunately, that can be the scariest thing to face. But there's immense value if we garner the courage to do so. And there's nothing stopping us from getting 1% better today. So.
Well, that's well said. And on that note, let's wind this down today with how can people engage with U.L.A. and SISU Stamina, your podcast, your book? Walk us through all the ways, all the touch points.
The best way, the simplest way is go to ULAuniverse.com. We call it a universe because it's an ecosystem. So head on over to ULAuniverse.com, and right there we will scoop you up and curate you on an adventure of seeing SISU Stamina, the book, the podcast, and the community efforts that we're leading. So that would be the best way.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, any final words you'd like to leave our audience with?
We're just grateful that we have so many people that have supported us along the way. I mean, it is a lonely business. It's just, there's a saying, I forget who said it, but it's chewing on glass and staring at the abyss for quite a while. But it is so gratifying putting the work in and breaking through and escaping, reaching escape velocity to the other side, where you're working on something that has a heartbeat at that point, right? And we would not have been able to get there without the daily sacrifice from our families, the endless encouragement from a very, very wonderful group of friends that have just walked from step one, truly, all the way to this point in time. So really thank you guys for helping to get us this far. We have so much further to go, but we're just grateful across the board. Yeah. And for your time, Jason, thank you so much for having us on here.
Oh, my pleasure. I always learn something from you guys too. Well, this is the Entrepreneur Workshop with today, John and Kirk from U.L.A. Universe. Certainly go to ULAuniverse.com to interact with them. Also, every Tuesday at 10 a.m., we've got the Entrepreneur Workshop where we unpack the skills, the challenges, the opportunities, the support structures that you need to have in place to be better at being an entrepreneur. And I think that's like we talked about today, makes you better at life if you approach it from that perspective. So, gentlemen, Thanks for being on today, and to all of our viewers and listeners today, thanks for joining us.
Take care.